When you think of Jaguar, you probably imagine big, luxurious saloons with large engines travelling across big distances in great comfort. But in more recent times, it's cars like the F-Pace which have driven Jaguar forward and provided for the bulk of its sales. But now, the market that the F-Pace sits within is very congested, and certainly it's got plenty of rivals when it comes to premium SUVs. Jaguar, as a result, has updated it with a tweaked look and, more importantly, some better technology inside. But is it enough to keep the F-Pace as much of an all-rounder as it always was, or should you be looking elsewhere in the premium SUV segment? Well, in today's video, we're going to be finding that out. As I mentioned, Jaguar did update the F-Pace recently to breathe a little bit of life into the exterior design. The bulk of the changes reside around the lights. They've been sharpened up and integrated with new LED daytime running lights. It's still a very attractive package overall and manages to not be too large while still offering the space that you need inside. I think it's fair to say that when the F-Pace first launched a couple of years ago, that its interior was probably its weakest element. It just felt a little bit old school. Now, Jaguar seemed to try and address that in this revised version, and all of those changes centre around the inclusion of its new infotainment system in the middle. It's the PIV system, so as we've found in other JLR cars, it's nice and responsive, it's got loads of features, and it looks good too, although I would have liked to have seen it a little better integrated into the dashboard. It feels like it's just been plonked on, almost like you've attached an iPad with super glue. At the bottom we've got some nice chunky controls for the heating and ventilation, which are appreciated, and there's also quite a nice little rotary dial for the mode selector, which I think just looks cool, and also harks back a little bit to the original XF rotary dials. You remember the one that used to come up and spin around to let you change gear? In terms of functionality, things are good. You've got two large cup holders, and there's a wireless charging pad for your smartphone too. Under here, we've got a USB and a USB-C charging port, as well as a useful cubby storage area. And then we've got these big bucket seats on this R-Design model, which do look good, but I find them to be a little bit firm. I'd like to have just a bit more cushioning from my big premium SUV. The overall effect is good though, and it's the inclusion of that new screen which completely elevates the experience in here. The fundamentals are good in the back of the F-Pace. I've got plenty of room for my feet and for my knees, despite these relatively large bucket seats being fitted. They're quite slim. They're not like true bucket seats, as they don't seem to arc out too much, but that's good in this instance. The seats themselves are nice and flat and square, and there is a really big transmission hump in the middle, so the person sitting there is going to be quite squashed in, and I think this is a comfortable four-seater and then a five-seater just if you need it. We've got ISOFIX points at either side on either seat, so you can fit child seats there should you need to, and there's some nice little string back areas for putting those loose items on those seats. The only thing I would say is this central section is made out of the nastiest plastic you can imagine, and I can't imagine why you'd want to do that, because it just kind of lets everything down. You've got lovely leather here, lovely here, carpets and good materials, and then this section is just pretty awful. You've got one charging point there, but apart from that, not too much else. It's just a bit of a letdown, really. The F-Pace does have a respectable sized boot. On this plug-in hybrid version though, you're getting 552 litres of room, and that's down from 630 litres in a regular petrol or diesel. As you can see, you're getting this big hump here, and it feels an awful lot smaller and an awful lot higher than you'd expect on a car like this. There's also no storage underneath for the charging cables, so you really are going to have to keep them in the back there if you want to take them with you, and that's going to dent your luggage space even further. It's still not a bad amount of room, but obviously you're not going to be able to load anything flat, which is a bit of a disappointment, really. When the F-Pace first launched, well, quite a number of years ago now, it was always about offering a good on-road experience with some involving driving characteristics, but as well as providing that premium high-end feeling that you'd expect from a big SUV. What's it like in 2023? Well, it's still much the same actually. The steering is some of the nicest that you'll find in the segment, and it certainly helps you to place the car really accurately. We've got a nice thin steering wheel too, which I think is quite a nice change from some of the chunkier versions you get on quite a lot of modern SUVs that rival the F-Pace. This particular version is the P400e F-Pace, which means that it combines a 2-litre turbocharged petrol engine with electric motors and batteries. Now, Jaguar claims that you should be able to do around 30 miles on electric only power, and that means you should be able to get 130 odd mpg, but it's always worth taking those figures with a pinch of salt because you only really get them when you've fully charged up the batteries and when you're driving on electric power alone. However, the ability to run on electric power means that you do get very low CO2 emissions, and also it should help reduce costs when you are driving at slower speeds or when you're doing shorter journeys, say taking the kids to school or just commuting short trips to work. And also the combination of petrol and electric power means that the F-Pace is actually quite sprightly. It should do 0 to 60 miles an hour in 5.1 seconds, which is pretty good for a car of this size. And it doesn't ever feel underpowered, but the only problem is that when you do then have to rely on just the 4-cylinder petrol engine, it doesn't give the same kind of silky response that you'd get from a big 6-cylinder or a larger diesel engine. It's not bad, and it's certainly not too noisy. It's just not quite what you would expect. The other thing that I found with this R-Design car is that it's very firm. We're on quite big alloy wheels here, and we've got stiffened suspension, and that means that everything on the road translates through to the cabin. I'm talking all the lumps and bumps and the big potholes you really feel impeding into the car's cabin, and it's just not very pleasant. I'd try and get a car with smaller wheels, and I'd also say that the additional weight that comes as a result of the fitment of the batteries probably isn't helping things either. Something that I've also found with this hybrid version is that when you're at a dead stop and you have to accelerate quickly, there's a shunt as the electric motor tries to come into play, and it's really unpleasant actually. It feels like you've done something wrong, like you've shot something under the bonnet. Like all plug-in hybrids, the F-Pace P400e is best kept charged up, and via a 7 kilowatt charger at home you should be able to fully top it up in about an hour and 40 minutes, so it's really not too bad. You could shave that down by putting on a quicker charger and you'd get a 10 to 80% charge in around 30 minutes, but realistically you're going to just plug it in at home and easily charge up those batteries overnight, or just if you've stopped off for a short period. It's a nice car to drive, I just wish it was a tiny bit more comfortable, particularly over those rough surfaces. The F-Pace has plenty of merits to check out. I think with the tweaks made to the interior, it's far better than it used to be if you discount some slightly unsavoury plastics in the back, and it's also nice and spacious inside too, so it could be an ideal family car. What do I think of this hybrid version? Well, I don't think it delivers the kind of driving experience you'd expect from an F-Pace, and it also means you're getting a far smaller boot than you would do on the regular version. Of course, if you're going to do short trips, or if you're having this as a company car where the low CO2 figures will mean a low rate of tax, then obviously it makes a great deal of sense. But for other drivers and for private owners, I'd be looking more in the direction of the traditional petrol or diesel versions instead. Thank you for watching this Motors new car review on the Jaguar F-Pace. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, leave us a like below and let us know in the comments section what your thoughts are on the F-Pace. Do you think you could put up with the compromises that the plug-in hybrid version brings, or would you be going for a petrol or diesel version instead? And since you're here, please remember to subscribe to the Motors YouTube channel, and if you hit that bell icon, you'll get a notification each time we upload a new video.